Right then. So I'll do a quick intro. So I'm Ellie. I'm one of RicNic's trustees. So I first got involved with RicNic back when I was in sixth form. I did Singing in the Rain at the Winchester Theatre Royal, and then Thoroughly Modern Millie also at the Winchester Theatre Royal. So that was way back in 2011, 2012. So eons ago. And I now work in the theatre industry. So I work for an agency called AKA, and we do the marketing and advertising for a number of West End productions. We also work with museums and galleries and other entertainment clients. So just to name a few, so my main clients are ABBA Voyage and the Phantom of the Opera. And then I'm working on a play at the moment with Mark Rylance called Dr. Semmelweis. And then we also work on Tina, Matilda, Crazy for You, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. We used to work on Come From Away, work on A Little Life. So big, broad range of shows. So people always wonder, like, how on earth you get into that kind of area of the arts. I'm going to say it's certainly when I was in RicNic, it wasn't even something I knew existed. So I did a geography degree, but spent probably most of my time doing musical theatre. So then was like, oh, what do I want to do with my life? And just accidentally ended up in marketing. So I will preface everything I'm going to say today with the fact that I've never studied marketing. I'm, all the experience I've got is from being on the job. So none of this is from like a marketing textbook or, best practice, but it's all sort of what we would do on a West End show. So why not do it on with RicNic? Why not? So sort of what I wanted to cover is a few steps that we would go through anytime we're working on a new show or setting up a new campaign. So first thing I always say is super, super important is to know your product. So by that, I mean, so the show, for example, what are the themes of the show? What's the story? Very simple, but what's it about? What's the music style? Is it upbeat? Is it happy? Is it tap dancing? Is it a bit more melancholic? And leading on to that, what is the kind of mood that you get from the show? How's it going to make you feel? What's the existing awareness from members of the public of this production? Is it something that's universally known, or is it a bit more niche? Do we need to be educating people about it, or is it something that they're just going to see the name and jump at it? What are the unique selling points? What makes this show different from anything else in the area at that time? And history, are you kind of reinventing the wheel of this production? Is it something really different? Is it going to be in keeping with historic productions of the show? Just kind of having a knowledge of what people might be used to seeing and what you're going to be changing about it. And then knowing your audience. So that's going to become really, really key. So obviously with RicNic, it's going to be, a local audience. And I think it's just knowing, are they a young audience? Are you looking for people your own age? Are you looking for slightly older? So age is the first thing to consider. Location, I'm going to say local. I'm going to say, within 5 to 10 miles, maybe a bit more, depending on the location. Wealth, how much money have they got to spend? Are they going to be influenced by your ticket price? And also, in keeping with that, their wealth will dictate where they're going to see your advertising or your marketing materials. So how are you reaching people based on their socioeconomic background? Interests, just building up a picture of what these people do in their spare time. What kind of interests they have that cross over with theatre or don't cross over with theatre. What's their media consumption? So if we're doing a campaign for a West End show, we tend to reference our audiences as an ABC1 audience. So the wealthiest, basically the wealthiest and most, most aware of theatre. And they tend to, as a generalization, they tend to read the papers, they tend to see outdoor advertising, they tend to see posters. So that's kind of how we start with our planning. What are their buying habits? Oh, we've got someone in there, someone coming in. What are their buying habits? So are they going to be buying in, weeks in advance? Are they going to buy on the day? Are they going to buy on the week? And those are the sorts of things that we can and we can't control. So what we'll always do when we are planning a campaign is we will have things that hit people, 6 weeks from the date. Appreciate that's slightly different for RicNic because you tend to do it a little bit close to the time. So yeah, you need a kind of a range of activity that's going to hit people at different points of that process. So are you hitting them 6 weeks out? Are you hitting them 2 weeks out? Or are you hitting them on the day, for the day, to get them to come to the theatre that night? Please stop me if anyone's got any questions at any point, by the way. I'm happy to stop and answer any questions. So then based on all of these things, we want to create our brand. So that is the product itself, who we're selling it to, and what we want them, to take away from that. So those are comprised of a visual identity, so your poster, your logo, your visuals, your brand voice, so how you are talking to people, what kind of tone you're using. Is it a jovial, fun tone? Is it a bit more mysterious? How are you conveying your brand to people? And then your brand values. So it's kind of tied up in the two of those. But what do you want people to perceive? How do you want people to perceive your brand? What do you want people to know about it? So then the final step, once you've done all of those things, and I will say it might seem like a silly process to go through those other things, but it really will inform everything that you do going forward. And having a really clear idea of those elements is always going to help you with the next stage, which is the actual physical marketing process. So in my industry, this is what we tend to do. So I've mentioned press advertising before. It is maybe a bit of a dying breed, and people read newspapers less so than they used to, but it's kind of seen as a core part of any campaign, and we do still see uplift of sales and those sorts of things when we run with these titles. And I'm not necessarily saying you should be taking out an ad with the Telegraph because that costs you a few grand, but if there's any local newspapers, or if there's any PR that you think you're able to potentially secure with local newspapers, anything like that, that would obviously be a really great boost. Where's my phone? This is what we would do, but completely appreciate that budgets are incredibly different. I've put a picture of a bus in here. So one of our biggest advertising streams is buses, underground, posters. So on a smaller level, I'm thinking posters, flyers, as seen bottom left here with our lovely Phantom, Matilda, Mary Poppins posters. Loads of bars, restaurants, other art centres, churches, community centres. You've probably all, done this before, but if you go around with a handful of flyers or a poster to a small business in a local community and say, would you mind if I put my poster up? Would you mind if I put a stack of flyers on the counter? 9 times out of 10 they'll say yes. And there's always the odd snooty one who won't let you, but it's just good to ask about these things and get in there wherever you can. And that's where your creative becomes really important, and just making sure it's nice and clear, nice and eye-catching, so that people will see it as they walk past, just on their day-to-day. Radio, so we often run ads on Heart Radio, Magic Radio, etc. Again, it would just be looking into whatever the local stations are near to you, and whether that's a case of getting a little bit of PR on there, or if it's a case of finding other ways on. Again, that's always going to be a budget question, but that's a really great audience for theatre. On the right hand side here, you can see an email that we have sent out through a ticket agent. So email marketing is always a really good place to hit people who we know are interested in theatre, we know have booked for other shows in the past. So we tend to send things out through ticket agents, through email databases. But I would think that there are probably a few sort of local email databases in your area that you might be able to get in contact with and see if you could get a slot in there. Sometimes it's a newsletter, sometimes they'll send out an email specifically for you. Sometimes it's also even worth contacting other local theatres or local theatre companies and just asking if they wouldn't mind adding a note at the bottom of their emails about your show, depending on how charitable they are and how interested they are. I think it's worth a punt at just trying to get a bit of free space from them, and just trying to get a bit of presence on their email lists. And then, of course, finally, we've got the online space. So Google and all of the social media channels, those are going to be really important to your campaign, and crucially free. So always good to ensure you're nice and present on there. And I'll come to that shortly with a bit more information about what I mean there. So moving on. This is, I'm going to really surprised. This is what we call a marketing funnel. So what I mean by that is the different stages at which you are communicating with people in order to get them to make a purchase, buy your product, come to your show. So the top of that is awareness. So when I talk about awareness, that's kind of making people aware. So they know that they know that you're our show and you're on, and they know about you. So that tends to be things like the press ads I was talking about, the outdoor, the posters. That's where the awareness comes into play. There's your consideration. That's where people are thinking about their purchase. They just need a bit more information and to mull it over a bit more. And then you've got conversion. So that is pushing people to buy their ticket. And how I've broken it down is awareness. This is a great thing that's happening. Consideration. This is where, when, how, and what. So this is the website. This is where it's taking place. This is when it's taking place. And this is what it is. And this is how you can buy a ticket. And then conversion, please buy a ticket on this website. They are only 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds. So that ticket message is something that I'll always come back to, is, no matter how many times people see a poster with all the information they need, until you tell them what to do about it, they might not do it. So it's always just saying, please buy your ticket and this is how you can do it. And the price is always really key for people, because if they see something that they aren't sure about, the ticket price can be the thing that tips them over the edge. So does anyone have any questions before I move on to a bit of social media business?
If I may ask one thing I never see on advertisements on the tube or the buses or whatever is QR codes as a way of telling people how to do something. Now, obviously that's the right thing to do, clearly, because it's what's convention. as in not using things. But why is that? Is that something that's commonly avoided for a reason, or what's the best way to get people?
That's a really good question. So the reason we don't put QR codes on things like tube ads is because people are moving so quickly past them, they don't have time to stand and scan a QR code. So it also comes back to this idea of the funnel. So when we're advertising to people in that setting, this is an awareness piece. So this is just making them aware of the brand and making sure they see it here, there, and everywhere. So a QR code we would sometimes put on print advertising, we'd sometimes put it on programs, we would put it sort of in a venue or on the front of a venue to say, oh, you know, someone's standing in front of your venue, they might stand and scan a QR code, or if they have a piece of print like a business card or a leaflet or something, that's when someone's more likely to scan it. Whereas if someone's, you know, going about their day to day, it's not really very safe to put QR codes on things like that because you don't want to like stop the flow of people. And B, the likelihood of them actually doing so is quite small. We have had lots of, you know, we do get people asking for them all the time, and our response is always the same thing, that it's just not really the place for them. But yeah, really, really good question, and something that my clients ask me all the time.
No, right. Well, it was really great to hear the rationale behind that. That's fantastic. Thank you.
No problem. I personally, I'm a bit of a grandma about them. I don't really like QR codes. They annoy me. But yeah, no, great question. Thank you. Anything else before I move on to social media? No. Okie dokie. Right. So social media. This is probably going to be the key place that you guys are going to be selling your tickets, that you're going to be educating people about your show. You're going to be talking to your fans. So a few things to consider. So obviously our main channels are Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. I don't know if you guys are thinking about using TikTok at all, or is that being discussed at all?
RicNic does have an account, and we've had quite a lot of kind of success in the past. I know 2 years ago, kind of Ellie Macpherson had their own account. They were getting up to 60,000 views, 2,000, 3,000 likes. So I think it's something that'd be really good to build on more this year on the kind of the general RicNic, like the main account. So yeah, definitely something that hopefully teams can make use of this summer.
Yeah, that's worth knowing for sure. So TikTok, I would say, is the channel that consumes the most content. So what I mean by that is, oh, I've got a chat message. Oh, no problem, Hannah. All branches have a TikTok login. Great. That's good to know. So the thing with TikTok is you have to have a lot of content and you have to be constantly updating it, which is great if you've got content to use, but it's just worth, you know, thinking about that and making sure that you have an idea of what you want to be putting out. To be honest with you, I think that you guys will know best what you want to be putting on there. I'm sure that you've all dabbled in making the odd TikTok here and there. I guess the key thing is to make sure that it's on brand, make sure that it's selling.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to ask a question. Would people like potentially be interested to seeing something kind of like a vlog on TikTok? Because I've seen them quite often, like behind the scenes, or like how it's done. Because with theater production, we can show like before rehearsals or like rehearsals, or how everyone is getting ready, and we can do meet the casts or something like that and post them on TikTok. Is that engaging content?
Definitely. Yeah. I definitely think that's a good idea. I'll come on shortly onto a bit more info about like what kind of content to use, but definitely those sorts of things just to unpack the show and get people excited about the process are always a really good thing to be using. So yeah, so the key thing with TikTok, it's engagement building, it's short content, it's temporary, and it's being consumed quickly. So yeah, that's the place for your sort of the fun content, and yeah, and it's about building those engagement with your followers. Then you've got, I don't know if you guys use Twitter very much, but that's your kind of in the moment news-based platform. I don't know if you know, you probably have seen in the news about TikTok recently becoming very controversial, and Elon Musk's taking over of TikTok and taking away everyone's blue ticks and making them pay for it and everything and anything. So it's actually a place a lot of brands are steering away from a little bit at the moment, but it is a good way of engaging with local news brands, and it's a good way of, you know, a quote retweet of someone can get you a lot of followers, or just like getting mentions from people can increase your following there, and just getting that word out there. So Twitter is the key place that journalists look for news stories, so it's good to just keep a presence on there. Facebook, so everyone asks if Facebook is still a thing. People still use Facebook. Yes, they do. It's one of the really important things about Facebook is the ability to use groups, so like community groups. I've got a message on here. Thank you, Sophie. Lovely. Yeah, so local community groups, so that can be a good way if you have a specific message you want to get out to as many people as possible. It's always good to just find a few local groups on Facebook and request to join them, and just outline what you're doing, the sort of thing you want to tell people about, and you know, it's a good place to be putting your ticket link on and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a good place for information sharing. That's where the best kind of content for Facebook tends to be longer form content. So if you've got any longer videos that you want to be sharing, like a longer vlog, for example, Facebook's a good place for that. It the algorithm favors longer content on Facebook. And ultimately, whilst you're always wanting to engage with a younger audience, you know, your peers, your friends, that sort of thing, there are also going to be a lot of, like, your average local theatre goer quite often is a little bit older, and are more likely to be on Facebook versus other social media channels. So still really important place to be, and the fact that you can share posts on Facebook, whereas on some other channels it's less easy to do that. It's always good to make sure you've got a good presence there.
Can I ask a quick question, Ellie? Sorry.
Yeah, of course you can.
I'm just wondering, I don't know if it's a silly question or not, but in terms of like posting in community groups on Facebook, do you think from like a viewer's perspective, that's obviously, say, like, for instance, let's talk about RicNic. If someone hasn't heard of RicNic and they're in like, I don't know, say the local community I'm in, would a viewer rather see RicNic sharing a show, or someone, as in like a personal account, so not a business account, a personal account, saying, oh, come and see this show? Like, do you know like what has more engagement there from viewers? Like, I know it's a bit of a random one, but I just was like, I wonder if like what would get more engagement, like from a business account or a personal, like in a community group, what would people take more, do you know what I mean, note of?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, Sophie. Sorry, was that Sophie that asked that question? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say posting from the RicNic account gives you that sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? It kind of qualifies you. It gives it a bit more of a professional look.
Yeah.
I think people would have more trust in a, you know, they go on the site and they'd see, you know, RicNic's got lots of followers, and you know, it's a business, it's a trusted brand, and I think that it would perform better that way. Obviously, it slightly takes away the more personal nature of it being, you know, an individual posting rather than a business. But I think when ultimately our goal is we want people to be buying tickets for a RicNic show, I would always opt for the brand, posting from the brand rather than as an individual, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. I was just thinking in terms of like sharing a post, not like writing, oh, come and see the show, but like, if you was to share a RicNic post, I completely agree, but I just wondered if people might think, oh, well, so and so's in that show and they said it's good. Do you know what I mean? Whereas they don't know who's posting behind RicNic. But I completely it was just, I don't know, just interested really.
Yeah, to be honest, it's also maybe worth trying both and seeing what you get the best response from. It's always a good sort of trial and error with this sort of thing. And that's kind of, we do it in my, in my day-to-day. Sometimes there's not really an answer and you just have to test it and see. So yeah, always worth giving it a go. So then on Instagram, finally, I'm sure you all know, Instagram is incredibly visual. So anything you're posting on there has to look great. You want some great pictures, some good videos, short videos, and that's what's going to perform best on there. So I would always advise on Instagram to keep things as photographic as possible. So while sometimes you might need to like create a graphic for something, or design something, it's always going to be photography that's going to look best. And sometimes you have to like overlay some copy onto the photography or something like that, but pictures would always do best with a strong copy line on it. Or videos, of course, so reels always are great performers on that. So I think Hannah said something about reels there. Oh no, reels on Facebook again, 4.5k views, very good.
Yeah, our reels on Instagram are getting about 1.5 maybe to 2 max, most about 1,000. The Facebook algorithm, for whatever reason, is loving our reels, and it's sort of starting them out at 4,500. So bit mix.
It might also be, I might be making this up, but I think the RicNic Facebook is probably it's been around a bit longer, so it might be slightly more well established in terms of following.
Yeah,
and
there's a couple hundred more on
Yeah.
on there.
On the subject of Reels and TikToks generally, TikTok type content that is, would you stray away from posting the same post on TikTok Reel and Facebook Reel, or would you say that's perfectly fine?
Yeah,
right.
I would post it across all three, absolutely. Even if someone sees it 3 times, fine.
All right, thank you.
The likelihood of them seeing it 3 times is actually probably quite slim, to be honest. I mean, on all the brands I work with, we will regularly post the same thing on every single social media platform. Sometimes you just have to like tweak the copy, or sometimes you have to tailor it slightly to the platform. But absolutely no problem with posting the same thing on all the channels. That's a good question though. So yeah, in terms of the type of content, I can't remember if I've got a slide on this or not. Let me just check. Hold on. Okay, cool. So I've sort of done a bit of a idea for a strategy. So first thing you want to be doing is building a following. So you really cannot ignore your friends and your family first and foremost. They're the people. So when I used to work at a social media agency, whenever we opened a new account or whenever we posted anything, someone would put in our WhatsApp group, please follow, please like, because the more followers and likes you get in the first instance, the more the algorithm goes, oh, this is someone that we should be pushing. So even if you're just getting everyone in the cast to follow and like and comment, that is a really great start. And your friends and your family are going to also be really key to that. Because if they're liking things and commenting on things, people that they know will start to see it as well. So that's kind of basic Algorithm 101. There's a technique also called growth hacking, which you may or may not have heard of, whereby brands will find similar brands or other accounts to engage with and like and comment on their posts in order to build more followers. So for example, I'm trying to think of an example for RicNic. If there was a local business that was doing a dinner deal, I don't know, a restaurant that had a main and a pudding for 15 quid or something, you could comment and say, and why don't you come and see our show after your dinner? We'd love to see you there, something along those lines. But those sorts of interactions with other accounts are a really good way of building followers. And then thirdly on that is really important is community management. So those who are already following you, who are already interacting with your posts, you've just got to keep them on side. So if they comment on something, give it a little like, maybe respond. If they say, oh, can't wait to see the show, you could respond and say, we can't wait to welcome you. Hope you bring all your friends. Just keeping them on side, keeping them engaged is a really, really good way of just keeping that audience on side. So then when you're thinking about your social media strategy and what you're going to post, the first things that we always think about are your tentpole moments. So what are your big talking points? So first of all, you've got your on sale. That is going to be probably your biggest first point of call. So just have a think about what you want to post around then. I think the shows are already on sale, but that would be our first port of call there. Announcements. So when you're announcing your cast or when you have anything else to announce, how are you going to do that on social? And just ensuring that that's a big splash moment. Time markers, so like 2 months to go, 2 weeks to go. Just getting people excited and ready to go. First day of rehearsals is always a really nice way of building some momentum. Pictures of everyone in action. It just makes it all feel more real and makes people feel part of the experience. And then educating and unpacking things for people. So what's the show about? Who are you guys as a cast or a production team? So like we were talking about before, so a meet the cast, a behind the scenes, those sorts of things always work really well. If you've got friends and family, for example, that know you're in the show, they'll be supporting you all the way, and seeing your face in a piece of content, I'm sure will really excite them, and they'll share it with their friends and family because they'll be so proud of all their friends. So that sort of thing is always really great to include. So then engaging people. So it's all about making followers feel part of your journey. So those sorts of behind the scenes things are always really important. Instagram stories. So, while you're in rehearsals, giving people a bit of an insight into what's going on. And then you've probably seen on Instagram stories, you can do engagement drivers like polls and questions. So you could do like, oh, what are you most excited to see? And then you could have 2 options like, I'm most excited to see the tap dancing. I'm most excited to see this. Just a little poll to just get people engaging with your content are always really, really interesting to include. And I always say you should do those alongside sort of main feed posts as well, because they serve a very different purpose, and they'll just capture people in the moment. And then obviously really important is to sell. So telling people, reminding people where they can buy tickets, keep telling them, and then keep reminding them, because it's great if they're engaging with your content, but ultimately you want them to buy a ticket. So just keep on their backs, really. And then finally, appreciating your followers. So after the show, just thanking them for being there, thanking them for supporting RicNic, and and for following and being part of the journey. It's always really, really important, and will serve you really well in the future and future productions. Just making sure people feel loved and appreciated.